Hey everybody, project we're going to be working on is replacing this tank water heater with a electric tankless water heater. This thing takes up a lot of space. It still works, but it's been getting worse and worse on how much hot water it actually provides. I've replaced the filaments in the last few months and it still doesn't do very well. And I'm not willing to replace it with another one. So I'm gonna go through the process it'll take to switch this to be tankless. I've already purchased everything I think I need, so I'm gonna show you that in a second. And I'll be doing the project over probably 2-3 days after work each day. But I'll bring it all together in one video for you. So to get started, this will be the majority of the equipment. That's the water heater I've selected. It's the Rheem Retex 27. It's a 27 kilowatt. That's what the 27's for. Water heater, which basically means that it's going to take 3 40 amp dual pole breakers with 3 8-2 cables, which is very, very thick cable, expensive cable as well. I bought a spool of it, 125 feet for, it was like $3.79 at Home Depot. You can get it a little cheaper on Amazon, but not a lot cheaper, probably $120 or something, or I'm sorry, $220 or something to that nature, but it's expensive. The water heater itself, I'll post all the prices for what it costs and what the parts I bought and where I got them, and links in the description of the video. So just check that out for any details on how much I paid, what parts I used, how much they cost, etc. May vary in your area, of course. So that's the one I'm going to be installing. It's very small, compact. It does have some serious power requirements, but this one's good enough to manage 4 showers and 1 faucet at the same exact time. Or, you know, instead of showers, it could be a dishwasher, a washing machine, whatever, but that gives you an idea. These things are supposed to be very efficient. You know, they say you can save about 50% on your water heating costs. Of course, that's assuming you don't have teenagers that go, oh my God, unlimited hot water, and they let their shower or bathtub go for like 2 hours straight. Then your electric bill will probably go up instead of down. But barring that, these things can really save you a ton of money. So what else did I get? These are the valves that you'll need. Home Depot, they were like $150, $160 for the set. I got these ones on Amazon for like $59, and they seem to be very high quality, so should be good. I got the Shark Bite 1/2 pipes here to go, flexible pipe to go to the water heater to the existing CPVC pipes. The third one is for the drain pipe. I don't think I'll actually be needing that. I'll probably return it. I just got it in case. And then I got these are for your inputs and outputs. They're dielectric nipples to connect between those valves and these pipes. And then I got an extra set just to use one to go out of the pressure valve into the drain. And then you're gonna need a good set of wire cutters. I should say cable cutters, because the cable you're gonna need is very thick and not gonna be able to cut it with just plain old like needle nose cutters or something. You're gonna need some real cutters in order to cut it. It's thick, heavy, hard to cut. So I got those. And then for the conduit for the electric wires, I got 1 inch, I call this Smurf conduit. That'll go along the outside of my wall in my garage up into the attic. If you're going to be outside installing one of these, this one's meant for indoors. They do sell outdoor models. If you do an outdoor model and you're going to wire it outdoors, then you need to buy proper outdoor conduit as well. This stuff is meant for indoor only. So it's going to just go up into my attic, up the wall and into my attic, but it makes life a lot easier. That's the fitting to go into the water heater itself from that conduit. I got a couple different things just in case the knockout hole on the water heater is bigger, and then the appropriate fitting to secure it to the water heater. Then these here are for the punch outs in my electrical box. I'll need 3 of those, 1 for each cable coming in the top of my box. That'll just help to secure the cables to the box inside and make it all look neat and pretty. Got a couple of CPVC joints here to go to extend my drain to the new unit. So that's pretty much everything I bought with that regards. I got a couple other items I had bought in previously. The breakers, like I mentioned, you're gonna need, that's the old one. You're gonna need 3 of these guys. 3 40 amp breakers. They're the type you get will vary on your electrical box, so make sure you get the one that's for your box. I got these. You only need 1 of them, but they don't typically sell them in ones. They're special tips that will for the 3 different grounding wires you're going to have. They have a hole in the top, so basically you twist together 2 of them with 1 longer, and then the one just sticks out the top, and that's what you'll fasten. It'll come out, and that's what you'll fasten to the actual water heater. And that's pretty much all the parts necessary to do the job, I believe. I got myself a nice sharp new retractable snap knife as well, just to cut the insulation off the wires easier. I had one, but they're all old and rusty, so I just went ahead and picked one up. They're cheap, like $2-3. And that's it. That should be everything I need. In theory, the cable itself, I already got the spool up in the attic. I'll probably be showing it as I film the video, but a big spool of 8/2 cable that I'll be using. I'll have to do 3 runs into there. My electric box is fairly close to where the water heater's going. It's right here. I've already done a little bit of work moving breakers around. So I need to get 3 spots. They don't have to be right next to each other, but it's a good idea to have them near each other. So this is the existing water heater. It used to be up here. I moved it here. I basically switched things around a bit. So the 3 new ones will go here, here, and here. So if you can, move things around if the wires are long enough to accommodate that, such that you can have them all together. It makes it a lot easier in case you have to shut the thing off. You're just 1, 2, 3, done. So I'll be working that. The tape is just here for temporary to cover the knockout holes until I get around to actually wiring it over the next few days. But those will get knocked out as well. So I'll end up with here, here, and here, with this one being blocked. So that'll be an extra, and that'll actually fill up my panel after that I'm done there. Later on, I'll take this cover back off and give you an idea of how I'm wiring it, how I'm bringing the wires in. But basically the wires are going, being fed through the wall up into my attic. Thankfully I have an attic access point there with stairs I pull down, and it goes right to it. I've already pulled 1 of the 3 wires through, and I pulled an extra cable through to allow me to pull the other ones through. So that'll be super simple. Then I'll wire that into the attic, around through the wall here, and I've already screwed or drilled a hole, as you can see right there, for the conduit. So the conduit will come down right there, and I'll hook the water heater. I'll probably put the water heater fairly close to the ceiling, basically as high as I can, to be able to use those sharp bite tips onto the existing pipes, going right up there, and have the water heater as close and far to the top as possible and out of the way. And that'll be the project I'll be working on over the next few days that I will share with you. I've never done one of these before. I've done a lot of stuff. I'm kind of a do-it-yourselfer kind of guy. I'm not an electrician by trade, but I have some electrical background. You know, I worked in the Navy in communications and had to do some wiring and things of that nature there. So although I'm not formally trained or licensed, I do have some electrical background and experience. I've done a lot of wiring in my house and others. So if you don't feel comfortable wiring inside of an electric box, get an electrician. Okay, you can definitely kill yourself with this kind of power. Even being comfortable with it, I will cut off the power to the house at the main breaker outside before I start screwing it inside of this box, because I don't feel like dying today. So I recommend you do the same. Could I go in there with it live? Absolutely. Have I? Sure. But not for a big job like this where I'm wiring big thick wires, having to do a lot of maneuvering, switching around. I will cut the power off outside, come and open the box, do the wiring I need to do, put it back together, and then turn the power rack on and see if I get any fireworks. Hopefully I don't, and typically I don't, but you just never know, and definitely err on the side of safety. Okay, but that's pretty much, it's actually a fairly easy install. The hardest part of this job is going to be feeding the cables up through the wall here. It'll be super simple up in the attic. There's places for them to go. I'll show you that when I get up there. There's places for them to just kind of roll where there's other cables already. And then, you know, basically it's just going to come down through that conduit hole there that I mentioned. I'll feed it through this blue Smurf conduit and into the bottom of the box. And it should be fairly simple. Again, the hardest part is getting the electrical set up to begin with. The plumbing part of it should be super simple as well. Basically, I come off the bottom of the water heater with these 2 nipples, and then the nipples will go into those flexible pipes. The flexible pipes will just slide right onto the existing PVC pipe after I cut them. Obviously, I'll have to cut off the water to the house before I cut the pipes, or else I'll have a lot of water mess. And that's pretty much it. Obviously, you got to mount the water heater to the wall, so I'll need to use some masonry cement screws to do that, because that is cinder block, that wall. So good news is cinder block is really good for holding things up. Bad news is a pain in the ass to screw into. So I'll definitely need a masonry drill bit, some masonry screws to mount this water heater to the wall. I'll also try to cover how I drain the existing water heater and disconnect it and whatnot. That'll be a venture in and of itself, but it's fairly painless. The big thing is you're dealing with hot water, so you either need to turn it off and let it sit off for a while to let that water cool off, or turn off the system, let the water run through the house until the water heater's dry, all right? Or not dry, but out of hot water without the heating element on to heat up more. That's probably your best bet before you drain it. That way you'll drain cold water instead of hot water. So that's probably what I'll do. I'll basically turn the breaker off, go run the hot water until the hot water runs out, and then turn the water off and then drain this thing. So I'll be draining cold water instead of hot water, which is always easier to deal with for sure. Okay, so I'm going to stop this for now. When I continue, I will continue to film, and then I'll piece them all together at the end. All right, so I've kind of staged here the parts I'm getting ready to install, so you can kind of see what I'm doing. So I have the Smurf conduit fitting. I also have a cover for this. This is just a basic reducing washer, because I think that's actually slightly larger than this, so that'll make sure there's no extra strain there. And then one of these guys to fasten it. From here, we're going to take the cold water one and hook it on there with some basic Teflon tape, hooking that to there. And then off the bottom, we'll pull one of these Dielectric heat trap nipples off the bottom of there. I'll match blue with blue. They'll actually be this way. But the blue one will go here, the red one will go there. Likewise, this one's going to hook to there. I'll put some Teflon tape there. I'll put some Teflon tape on the bottom of each of those. Then you get this here will come off the side of there with some Teflon tape as well. And then one of these heat traps, they're just plain straight through ones. All right, so one thing to note is at least this particular ones, they come with a kind of a reducer built into them. So I'm gonna disconnect those reducers on both the hot and cold water valves. I'm gonna connect or add some Teflon tape to that to connect the reducer, and then I'll also add Teflon tape to there where it gets screwed onto the reducer. I don't know if you've used Teflon tape before, but real basic. This is sort of expensive, higher end Teflon tape, but Teflon tape of any kind will work. You get the plain white stuff, that's fine. Always put Teflon tape with the flow of the tightening of the direction, so that when you turn it, it doesn't take off the Teflon tape. So I can't hold the phone and do it at the same time, but I'll show you how it looks when it's all put together. So I'm going to work on all that right now. Okay, so here's what I've done thus far. As promised, I secured the Smurf conduit coupling to the unit. I did use the reducing washer there, and then a appropriate nut to hold it on. It's nice and secure. No wiggle, that's what you want. I used Teflon tape to connect the bushing to, the unit to the bushing, and the bushing to the valve. Okay, so you can see there's Teflon tape between both there. And then I connected the dielectric heat trap nipple. So it's a little bit confusing from the standpoint of, you see this one, you can see the colored end is down, and on this one the blue end is up. And the reason for that is the difference in the water flow. So the water's going that way, therefore the trap needs to be on top. It has a little ball that kind of pops it out for heat trap. So that one, the color goes up, white down. On this one, the white is up and the color down. And you can see the arrow here on this model, at least, shows you the data or the water flow. So the water's flowing this way, so you want it down. Water's flowing this way, so you want it up in this case. Okay, so that's how those are set up. Again, I have the Teflon tape there. And then off the side of the hot one, you don't have this on the cold one, but on the side of the hot one, you have for a emergency valve here for pressure release. Okay, so again, I did Teflon tape there. I chose to do another dielectric nipple here. It doesn't have the heat trap, it's just straight plastic all the way through, but it's still dielectric. What the dielectric means is basically the reason why it's plastic coated inside and why it covers, it prevents the actual connection between this and the next one with some plastic, is to prevent any kind of current that could possibly, you know, let's say one of these wires happened to touch the pipe here and you got some juice going here. This would break the circuit at that point, so that you don't electrify your pipes in your house and potentially electrify people. So that's the purpose of those type of valves. Again, I didn't necessarily need one here because this is just going to a drain, but it's just, I went ahead and got an extra cheap set. These together were like $8. This was like $4 or $5 a pair. I only needed one of them. It just makes life easier from a connection standpoint when I start connecting these puppies to go where I'm going. So next, these will go there to the existing piping. See that has a shark bite connection. It'll just push onto the existing PVC going into the house. Likewise, this will hook right onto the CPVC with one of these, more than likely, directly to the drain pipe. Or I may just extend the drain pipe right to this valve and connect it with this guy here, which is what I bought to connect that. So if I can get the CPVC to just kind of come right up into that, I will for the drain. If it doesn't line up right, which it might not, I'll need some flexibility, and then I'll use this as my flexibility. So that's why I bought an extra one of these, just in case I need to go from that, move over a bit into where the drain is. So that's the nice thing about those flexible pipes, is you can move them as necessary. So depending on whether or not I use this or not, is whether or not I'll use this. This is to go directly from that nipple to straight PVC. This would be to go from that nipple to PVC, maybe somewhere else, right? If I have to bend it a bit. So that's where we are so far. The plumbing of this job is pretty much done at that point. Again, these are gonna push right on. I'll connect this, again, I'll add some Teflon tape to each of those nipples, and I will run this. That will just slide right onto the existing CPVC after I cut it. So the plumbing on this is a super easy thing. It's basically doing what I just did here. In case you're not familiar with these valves, I'll explain them real quick. Basically, they have two shutoffs, right? Normal operation, you'll keep these valves closed, which is what they're in right now. And what these are, is these are maintenance valves. So as you can see right now, the ball valve is open, and that's with it closed. So normally I would want the water coming from the house, going into the unit, and this closed with this cap on, okay? But once a year with these units, you have got to run vinegar through the system. And to do that, you need these valves. So what you'll do is once a year, you'll close these valves. So you would put this down, you put this down, that closes off the house, it closes off the house on the out as well. So now there's no water coming in here, there's no water going out to the house, right? And then you'll hook up a water hose, either like a washer dryer type supply hose or a garden hose or whatever you like, they all fit. You'll have one going from here to like a 5-gallon bucket, and then another one going from here to I'm sorry, this one will go from here to a sump pump of some kind, into a 5-gallon bucket, and then this will just go into the 5-gallon bucket itself. So basically what will happen, nope, other way around. So basically what will happen is the sump pump is going to suck up vinegar. You'll dump a couple, 2-3 gallons of vinegar into the 5-gallon bucket, and then the sump pump will suck that up and put it into the hose that you'll have connected to here. And then when this comes out, this will come out and just dump right back into the pump, or into the bucket, and for the pump to pick back up and bring back into the input, etc. You'll leave that running for about 90 minutes once a year. So once a year you'll hook up two, typically washer dryer hookups work the best. One here, one here, sucking up the vinegar with the pump, shoving it into here, pushing it through the system to descale all the innards of this out here back into the bucket so it can be sucked back up. Keep doing that for about 90 minutes once a year, and that'll keep your system running really nicely. If you don't do that, you'll get all kinds of scale buildup inside here, and little by little you'll lose pressure, and eventually they'll cause the unit to fail. So it's an absolute must with the tankless water heaters that you have these type of valves and that you do the maintenance once a year. If you don't, you'll regret it. Okay, so again, make sure you install the right valves. Some of them do not come with, for the hot water, they don't have the extra thing for the pressure release. That's a safety thing. You really should have that. That's so that if there's too much hot water pressure here, it'll finally give way here and send the water out. So if the water's not able to make it into the house for whatever reason, it doesn't build up and it just explode. Okay, so you don't want an explosion. So that's the reason why you have to have that. So make sure when you're buying these valves, you might have to spend $5–10 more, but get the one with the hot water with the pressure valve off the side. Okay, you'll be thankful that you did if the unit ever gets clogged up and would have otherwise exploded. So that's it. You shouldn't need to add Teflon tape to this one because for the most part this valve will stay closed. You could if you wanted to. I'm not going to. Incidentally, you will need a pipe wrench to put these things on properly because there's no kind of grip on these. There's no nut type things to secure to, so you will need a pipe wrench. You could try it with channel locks, but channel locks don't really work quite the same way, so you're just going to end up scratching the living hell out of this, where the pipe wrench really won't. Okay, so I went ahead and got my pipe wrench and just tightened those on until they were tight. Same thing with that one. You'll want to make sure each of these are tight, right? And this is tight as well. Okay, so make sure all your fittings are on well. You do want them oriented this way so that you have these valves. When they're in the down position, that means the water is flowing. When they're in the up position, that means the water's been stopped at that spot. So typically, the normal operation will be down to down and sideways, sideways. The maintenance operation will be up, up, forward, forward. Right? So that means the water's going from here into here, up through here, actually vinegar, and out here into the bucket. Okay. Then when you're done with your maintenance, close, close, open, open. Now the water can flow through here without coming out the front, into the unit, out of the unit, into your house. Okay. So that's pretty much how this thing works. That's what the valves are for. None of this comes with your water heater, so you're going to need to buy this. You're going to need to buy the valves. You're going to need to buy this. This will usually come in a set. The two valves and the pressure release. You'll need to buy a set of these. You'll probably need another one for here. Okay, so those are the things. I will include all the parts that I used for my setup in the video description, so make sure you look through that to see exactly what I bought. You don't have to buy the same brands. You don't have to buy them from the same places, but you probably need the same items. Okay, so the next step will be the wiring of this thing and the hanging it up on the wall. I have to get the old one out of the way, the old water heater out of the way and drain it. So I'll probably do the video to cover that as well. I haven't decided on the exact order of those things. I do know I don't want to be without hot water for any extended period of time. So I don't want to drain and remove the old hot water heater until I am ready to finish this job. So some of this pre-work you can do over days, running the cables through the walls, getting the circuit box, the breaker box ready, clearing the right spots, running the wires, capping them off, etc., having them ready for connection. Doing this type of stuff you can do in advance, have it ready. But before you disconnect your old one, before you disconnect the old power, the old plumbing, you really don't want to do that until you're ready to finish the job, because otherwise you're going to leave your house without water, probably any water, because you need to turn off the cold water coming into this. All right, so unless you happen to have a shut-off valve right there coming into this unit, you're probably going to be turning off the water to the house in order to stop the water going into this unit. Once you have this hooked up, you could always use this to stop the water, but beforehand the water is going to be coming full pressure, and there's not going to be any way for you to stop the water from coming. So if you don't get this thing hooked up and working, disconnected from your old one and hooked up into this one, all in one transaction, so to speak, you'll be without power or water or both in your house until you do. So make sure you have the right time available to you, all the parts you need in hand before you disconnect your old system, to save yourself from having outage in your house for a day, 2 days, who knows, while you're waiting for some part from Amazon to show up. So make sure you have everything you need before you proceed, is what it comes down to. Okay, that's it for now. I'll revisit once I'm doing my next phase of this. Okay, so back down here at the breaker panel, I've taken the cover off, and as you can see, I have my openings there ready for the new breakers to go in.
I've already brought one wire in right here. That's that one. Right, I just kind of punched holes in. It was hard because I had to punch them from underneath, which is difficult. Basically what I ended up doing to get that, because they're meant to be pushed from the other side, but without taking the box out, that's just not possible. So what I did is I drilled a hole in the middle of each of the punch holes, and then used a pair of needle nose to grab it and pull it until it popped for each of those three. So I'm actually going to bring in each cable one at a time through each of those, and I'm going to secure these are push type clamps that will go into those holes to secure the cable properly and avoid extra holes. So normally you have that kind, again though they're meant to be put in from the other side and then secured underneath, but this way I'm going the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and use this kind, which I got at Home Depot. I came in packs of two. They're like $2-3 for a couple of them. So I'll do that for each of the three. So far I've pulled through the one cable. As I mentioned, this is very thick 8-2 cable. I will go ahead and pull the other one up. I brought this down to help me pull the other cable up when I'm ready to do so. The first one I used a cable pull for one of these things here. So I used one of those to snake through the wall, and it's kind of a tight squeeze up there where it has to come through, so I pulled this through as an extra cable to pull it through. Although it's coming down through the wrong hole at the moment, I will try to pull it over to the right one before I proceed. So, all right, I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna go turn power off because right now the power's still on, and I don't want to accidentally touch maybe one of those guys there. That would be the end of my life. So don't need anything like that. So I'm going to go turn power off, and then I will be working from headlamps and flashlights from there until I get the box closed again. All right, be back in a bit. All right, before I get started and turn the power off downstairs, I'm gonna cut the first wire to size so I know exactly how long I need the other ones to be. I want to show you what I've done so far. So this is the spool of cable. I got 125 feet. I don't need nearly that much, but they pretty much sell it in 25 or 125. There's no in between. And they sell it by the foot, but then you'll get up to over $100 before you even get to 30 feet. So you're just better off buying the bigger one. All right, so what I did is I saw where the main line, you can see that's where the main power box gets its power, this big gray cable here. And then you can see a bunch of other power cables that are also going down into this wood here. And I basically just went between the two and drilled a hole through the beam right there. And then from the bottom I used the snake to send it up. And I got the hole, I got it through that hole, and then I taped one end of the cable to that snake and then pulled it down into the electrical box. So I have to do that 2 more times, but before I do that, I kind of got to know how long I need each of these 3 cables to be. I can guess, but, you know, I can use a measuring tape and try to do it, but what I'm going to do instead is I know how many feet it is that I've used so far, and I'm going to go ahead and measure this and bring it all the way. So as I've mentioned before, I pretty much am going to just come up here. I'm just going to follow like these lines did here, and they will come right there where that white cable's going down, and that hole there, that's the hole that I showed you earlier in the ceiling underneath. So that's where my Smurf conduit will come up and into the attic here. So it's a fairly easy pass. Basically, the Smurf conduit will be used at least to here. It'll probably reach almost the whole way. It's 25 feet. It may be long enough to reach all the way to there, but even if it doesn't really need a conduit up here in the attic. As you can see, none of these cables have that, and there's some equivalent cables here. So as you can see, my wire is sticking out. My snake came up the hole. So now I'm gonna tape the second cable to it and pull it down through. So I'll show you how I do that after I get it set up. So with my snake cable or wire or whatever this would be, I'm gonna take a pair of needle nose and I'm gonna bend the tip of it back into a hook, which will help me to attach the wire to it more securely, and then I'll tape it, and that'll make sure that it doesn't fall off as I pull it down. So you can see I kind of made a hook and I wrapped it around the cable just a little bit, and then I wrapped it in black tape, electrical tape, and now I'll just pull it straight down from the bottom and it should be okay. So I'll go do that next. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this down now that it's taped up there. Nice and slow. Try not to yank. If it gets stuck, just kind of wiggle it to get it unstuck. And there it is. Make sure you give yourself enough cable to do the job. So now I'll undo my black electrical tape mess and I'll repeat the process for the third cable. I got the second cable mounted in there. I put the clamp on it. That'll keep it from being pulled up by mistake. I can always adjust it later just by loosening those two screws, and then I can pull it up if I need more room. So next I'm gonna send my snake up through the third hole and hopefully I get lucky again. All right, cables seem to go up. It took a bit wiggling and tapping the top of the wood, but I think it's up there. I'll go up in the attic and confirm. Should be good to go though. So yet again, I had to straighten this out or cut it either way. And now I'm gonna bend it again so that I can wrap it around the third cable and pull it through. I will tape it up and pull it through just like before. I don't need to show that to you again. I'll just show you once the third cable is pulled into the box. So as you can see, I've pulled through the third cable, or pushed it through so far. Now I'm gonna go down to the electrical box and pull it down. All right, so here we go. Let's pull it straight down. It doesn't feel like it wants to come. Just gotta jiggle it. Gotta convince it. All right, I got 1, 2, 3 cables pulled through. I'll add my little tip thing. Then I'm gonna start splitting these guys apart so I can connect them to their appropriate circuit breakers. Then I'll probably call it for the day, but I won't hook them to the, I'll make sure they fit on the circuit breakers. I'll show you how I do it. Then I'm gonna turn power back on and call it a day. So we'll see what we do next. All right, so the next step will be to strip the sheathing off of the cable and get them bare, just like you see they've done on all these other cables, right? And then I'll route the black cables down this side, and I'll route the white cables down this side, and I'll route but I have some openings on that side, so they're gonna have to go down the back there. So it's unfortunate, but I'll have to split off up here and get routed around the back of the box there so that I can go into the ground bar there, because this ground bar is pretty well full. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start stripping the sheathing off of these, and then from there I will show you what I do next. So I used just a standard knife, so a breakaway snap knife, box knife, to start it, but then I just used the cable. I just pulled the sheathing itself over the cable so that I don't break the insulation in any of the actual cables. So I didn't cut it all the way up on purpose because this particular cable was my first one, and I think I might be just a little short. So because I'm a little short, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just do enough to get to that breaker spot, which is where this one needs to go. And then the rest I'll just pull back up, right? So I didn't want to break the sheathing any more than I have to, because I want to conserve on that one. The other ones I cut more than long enough, but that one's a little bit tight, if you will. So the next thing I'm gonna do is white usually means neutral, and that's an electrician's nightmare if that's actually hot. So I purchased some red electrical tape. I got, I think, a 12 pack for like 10 bucks on Amazon. And I'm gonna wrap that all the way around this cable so that it looks like a red cable. It's pretty hard to find red-black cable. The only time you'll find red-black cable is if you buy like 8-3 cable, which would come with red, white, and black, as well as a neutral. But typically that's overkill. You don't need that unless you're going to be having something that connects, that needs a neutral as well. So in this case, you're getting 8-2 wire, and you're going to turn your white wire into a hot red wire. So I'm going to do that just by wrapping red tape around it. You could use black tape as well. I'm just kind of anal. So I want to be able to differentiate which pole is going on which. Okay, so I'm going to do that next. All right, I got my first cable done. I've split it all the way up. I've tightened it. I put red tape all the way around it. Funneled it where it needs to go. They're not connected yet. But that's the breaker they're going to, so I can tell that they're long enough. Right? So they're going to go here and here. Right? And then they'll get tucked there with the rest. It'll be perfect. All right, so I got to do the same thing for these two. The neutral, or the ground, I had to tuck as well behind all this. And I put it into that top one right there. So now I'll do the same thing for the other two, and then I'll show you how it all came out. Okay, so I got all three of my grounds connected. I got those things pinned down. I still got to put red wire around these and wire them where they need to go within the box. But I should be okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go turn the power on, because it's quickly getting dark out here. And I have very little light, even with my headlamp. So I'm going to go turn the lights back on. I think I should be okay staying away from all that stuff while I do the last little bit in the box here. All right, so as you can see, I did finish them up. I taped over the white wires with red electrical tape, like I said. I've now tucked the wires down here. They're to the length they need to be, but I've kind of taped them off for now because I'm not ready to finish the job today. But I'm pretty much done in the electrical box. After I do the plumbing and the hanging of the water heater, etc., I'll open this back up, hook these 3 sets of wires to the new breakers, and close up the box, and electrical will be done. So overall, not too bad. It takes time. I do it over a few days here because I work during the day, and I can either do it after work, or I can do it on the weekend. I'd rather do something fun on the weekend, so this is my after work project. So I do a little bit each day. All right, tomorrow I'll get to doing the other side, hooking up and hanging the new water heater on the wall, wiring it up there. I don't know if I'll finish tomorrow, but I'll at least get some more done. So till then. Okay, so off video, I mounted the unit to the wall with 4 masonry screws. I went ahead and cut the Smurf conduit to just be enough to go from the unit up into the ceiling, and then it goes out maybe a couple feet into the attic. It's not going through the attic because none of the other wires have conduit around them, and it's really hard to feed these thick wires, 3 of them, through this tube. They fit, but they're tight. Next, I'm stripping the wires, and we'll start to mount them. I will, of course, wrap the whites with red electrical tape as I did on the electrical box. I'll show you when it's all done. Okay, so as you can see, I got my first set of wires connected with the red electrical tape wrapped around the white. And you want to make sure you stick them in there real good and pull, because if that happens, you don't have good connection. So you got to make sure you shove it up there. This one's barely long enough. So I'm gonna have to keep pulling and hope I can get a little bit more out of it. Otherwise I may have to move it to there, which is a little less distance. It's just I kind of wanted that one on the left because I know which one it is. But next I'm gonna show you guys how to take care of these. We're gonna add one of these. So basically what's gonna happen is I'm gonna cut 2 of these to be shorter and leave this one nice and long. And then I'm going to twist these two together real well with a pair of needle nose, right? So they'll be twisted real well. And then this one as well around those. And then this one will come through the hole on the top of this, okay? And then that will get attached to that bracket right there for the ground. So you're only going to connect one of the three to the ground. The other two are just wrapped together and coupled with one of these guys. So I'll show you how that looks afterwards. Okay, so I went ahead and switched it to the middle pole, to the middle set, because those wires are just a little bit too short and I do not want them pulling out over time. So you want to make sure you give them a good tug that they don't come out. Those screws have to be in crazy tight to hold them in place, especially if they're a little too short and they're kind of pulling. You need to make sure they're in really well, or else you'll lose connection over time. So next, I've cut these two to be the same size. This one I left longer on purpose. I'm gonna use a pair of needle nose. I'll basically grab all three of them and twist until they're nice and twisted together. Then I'll slip my, whatever you call the connection, wire connector over to it. And I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. All right, so you can see I've twisted it together real well there with the pliers. Now I'm gonna just take my cap here. And again, this one has a hole in the top on purpose. It's meant to do this. So I'm just gonna twist that on now real good. And then this monster here will go into there. So I just have to loosen that screw and then I can tighten that on there. All right, so I got the ground wire fastened on there nicely. Kind of tucked it up out of the way so it won't be in the way when I connect up my last two sets of wires. I'm gonna wrap this white and this white with red now, and then I will attach them to the appropriate poles. And I'll show you what it all looks like when it's done. All right, I got two of the three on there good. Again, pull test on all of them. I haven't done this one yet on purpose. I wanted to point something out. When the wires come out of the sheathing, they're a little twisted, but they're not very well twisted. Before you put them into where they go, use a pair of needle nose and twist them to be a little bit tighter twists, and you'll get a better connection that way when you're screwing the screw in to hold them. So I didn't show that on the other ones, but I did do it. So I'm gonna do it on these, and then I'll put them in place, and then I'll show you how it looks when it's done. Okay, so they're all hooked up. Everything's been tested as far as pulled down, etc. One thing you want to do when you're done doing the wiring is inspect each of your wires. Make sure that there's no cuts in the insulation, which could have occurred when you were stripping the sheathing off. In this case, if you'll notice, that one there is cut. The wire itself is fine, but the insulation's cut. So I'm going to wrap a bit of black electrical tape around that just to make sure that there's no shorts later on. All right. After I do that, that's pretty much it for the electrical install at the unit. You can see the Smurf pipe is just like that. I might put clamps to hold it on the wall, but it's not moving, so I don't really need them. And it just kind of goes up there. I may spray some foam here, just the spray foam there, just to kind of close that gap for bugs, etc. But it's pretty good. It's not a very big hole. All things said, so basically just got to dust off the stuff from the ceiling, put the cover on, which will be 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the bottom, and then put the knob back on, and electrically this thing's ready to roll. And most of the plumbing is done too, because I already did the valves, so I'll really just have to drain this guy and cut these. I'll probably cut it right here, or potentially here, so I leave this knob. So I might cut it here, and then I'll just do the hoses going like that and like that. And then the drain one will go from here down to there, and all this stuff will go away. So that's the last thing I really have to work on at the unit itself. Then at the very end, once I'm done with all the plumbing, all the electrical, I will then go to the electric box and hook up the wires that are pulled through to the electric box. I'll hook them to their breakers, and that would be the end of the job, and then we'll just hope and pray that everything works. So I'm going to move to the next thing. I'll be back when I'm ready to show you something else. All right, so probably the hardest part of this whole job is trying to get these damn screws back into the top of the water heater. And the reason why is because it's in a very high spot, out of your way, you can't see it. And I tried to use a magnetic tip screwdriver, which this is, but apparently these screws are not the kind of metal that picks up with magnet. So that didn't help me. So I'm going to teach you another trick. Basically, I'm going to use some painter's tape or masking tape or whatever you have, and I'm going to punch it through there and wrap it onto the screwdriver so that it actually holds on to the screwdriver, which will make it a whole lot easier. And then I just basically, once it's screwed in, pull away and the tape will come free. So I'll show you how I do that. So there you go. As you can see, I punched it through, taped it onto the screwdriver, which means that when I go like this, the screw doesn't fall off. I can find the hole fairly easily up top, even though I can't see it. Screw it in, and then once it's screwed in, I can just pull, and the screw will stay fit, but the tape will give way, and that's just fine. And then I'll repeat the process for the other one. The other two screws are on the bottom, so I'll be able to see where they're going, and it'll be a lot easier. But if I needed to, I could do the same thing to hold it more steady for me. So I'm gonna go do that. Okay, so I got 3 of the 4 screws on. The very last one up here, I couldn't get a screwdriver in there because of the conduits in the way, so I had to find a stub screwdriver and do my trick. And hopefully that should do the trick. If I can find the hole, there it is. With any other screwdriver, I couldn't get underneath that conduit to do it. So this one's doing it. It's just a little bit hard because it's kind of almost too fat, the screwdriver I mean, and it's hitting the wall as I spin here. So it's not ideal, but even if the screw doesn't go all the way in, it's not the end of the world. That case isn't going to fall off, and the screws only serve to hold the case on, so it shouldn't be a big deal. There we go, it's on now. And like I mentioned, pull away, the tape comes off. The screw is still there, as can be seen right there. Okay, so it's on. So what's the last thing to do? Is put the knob on. So I just line up that with that and push. And it has kind of a push button, and it has a tactile move. You can kind of feel it bumping as you turn it a little bit, but it doesn't stop. It spins 360 degrees either direction. So after I hit power, that digital display should come on. I'm not going to do that until I have plumbing and stuff hooked up as well. But overall, I'd say it looks pretty nice. When I'm done, I can get rid of this monster water heater, and I'll have reclaimed all this space because it just sits up there nice and high, out of the way. Not so high that I can't get to it. If I want to adjust the temperatures, I'll just get my stepladder out and spin the knob a little bit. It's also easy for maintenance. I'll just basically hook up the hoses there and good to go. Other than that though, this space is all going to be reclaimed. There'll still be some hoses sticking out here going to the water heater, but that's no big deal. And then I'll get rid of this as well. I'll probably keep the cable there just in case I ever need it, but I'll probably remove this conduit and tie the cable up. I'll wrap it up and just kind of keep it mounted over there, just in case I ever need a 220 over here. This wire already run all the way over here. Might as well keep it in the walls. So I might keep the conduit and just wrap it up as well. Maybe I'll tie it to the Smurf conduit just in case. You just never know when you might need it, but it is not going to be used for this job because I ran 3 new 8-2 cables through that Smurf conduit into the attic all the way over to the electrical box. So this cable here will no longer be used, but could be used again for an outlet if I needed a 220 outlet over here for something. I already have cable for that, which is pretty cool. No need to rerun through the attic again, some other job. So, all right, so next step will be to disconnect this puppy, drain it. First thing I'm gonna do though, is I'm gonna turn its power off, and I'm gonna go in the house, and I'm gonna run hot water until it's cold water. Once it's cold water, I'll know that this thing's not got any hot water in it, and then I can safely drain it without dealing with hot water. So I'll show you guys all that as well. But for now, I'm just gonna go turn the breaker off for this guy, and then I'll work with draining all the hot water out of the tank so that I can deal with it easier. Okay, so the next step is to get rid of this beast. So what I'm gonna do first off is I'm gonna turn off this guy. That'll disconnect water coming from the main water in the house to the water heater. But I'm not gonna trust that valve. I don't like the fact that I can't even really fully close it. I'm gonna use a pair of needle nose to turn it anyways. But I'm gonna go turn the water off in the house because I don't need water in my face or all over the floor. So I'm gonna go turn off that water, and then I'm debating whether or not I cut the pipe here and put the hoses directly to that, or if I try to go to outside to here or here. Kind of leaning towards going right to this. But I wanna see what that is first. If it's CPVC, I'll probably go directly to it. If it's copper, I probably will start here instead, just because those shark bites aren't meant to go to copper. I don't think, maybe they are, I don't know. Either way, I don't know that I'll want to cut through copper if it's copper. I would need a hacksaw. I don't know that I want to do that. But I'm going to scratch it with a screwdriver to see what it is underneath. If it is just CPVC, I will probably cut right here. I'll remove that bracket and cut right there on both of them, and then I'll put the shark bite hoses right onto that, and they'll go right from there to there, which will look really nice. And then for this one here, my shark bite hose is going to be too short. It's not going to reach all the way down there. So what I'll probably do for this, which is kind of a mess, but what I'll probably do for this is cut it here, and then I'll use a coupler to extend the pipe with more CPVC that comes all the way up here, and then I probably will just have it lean into this, and then have it lean into that, and then connect directly to that without any hose. It's just a drain pipe, so it doesn't have to be phenomenal. So I'll play with it, but the main two that I'm really worried about are these two here. You don't even have to have a drain pipe. I mean, you just know that if there's ever a pressure thing, it's just gonna let the water out right there. But I'm gonna put one, since I already have one going to the house that ends up getting drained outside. I'll show you where it empties. It goes through the cinder block, and it just empties right here. See that right there? That's where that overflow empties to. So, which is nice, because that way it doesn't make a big mess all over my floor. You know, if I ever needed to, I could let the water drain through there instead of it just going all over the floor right from the bottom of the pressure unit. So I'm gonna go ahead and I've already run the hot water out of the tank through the house by turning the hot water on for about 30 minutes until there was no hot water, and it just started running cold, 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 cold. The water heater's been disconnected from power. I just switched the breaker off so far, but I will be taking the breaker out completely and replacing it with the breakers for that after I'm done here. But first step is to figure out these pipes and drain this sucker. So what I'm gonna do to drain it is there is a knob down at the bottom for draining, but that's not gonna make it go very fast because there's gonna be pressure in here. It's gonna prevent it from coming down. So there's a couple things you can do to release that pressure. One is you can use the pressure thing, right? Pull that up, which will help to drain the pressure. The other thing you can do is there's a thing on here on most of these guys. I know there's one on this one because I've done it before. Right here is the rod there, which is used, it's a self-destructing rod that basically is used to collect all the sediment and let that rust instead of the tank. So I'm going to remove that as well. That'll help remove the vacuum. So I'll need a nice big nut on there, a socket, and I will take that off as well. And that'll help relieve the pressure so that when I open that, it just flows down really nice and drains. I'm going to want to hook a hose up to this to let it drain outside. Otherwise, it's just going to hit my floor, which isn't the end of the world because this is all slanted, and it would just go out the garage anyway. But just so that I have a more controlled situation, I'm going to hook a hose and have it go outside, right through the hose, which will be easier. So I'm going to get all that hooked up, and then we'll go from there. Okay, folks, this is what we call a bleeder project. So I needed a hose in order to drain the water heater. And of course, it's on there pretty damn good, so I used a pair of channel locks to try to undo it. And instead of it coming free, the whole faucet did. So that's gonna be a fun project in and of itself. Basically, I had to shut off the water to the house because there's no way to stop the water from coming out otherwise. And basically what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to break all this cement. Then I'm gonna have to clean up around that CPVC, add a coupling with some more CPVC, and then a new faucet. Or I could try to clean out this faucet, get that CPVC out of there, but it's not worth it. I'll just get a new faucet. So yeah, it's called a bleeder project. Basically, you're doing everything you need to for some other job, and as a result of it, you end up with a new job. So this becomes priority, unfortunately. So this is what I'll be working on next. So as I mentioned before, I'm gonna disconnect this rod. I needed a nice big, what is this, looks to be a 1 1/16 inch socket. Good heavy duty socket wrench. And chances are I'm not gonna be able to unscrew it. It's pretty hard. So what you'll need to do to loosen it is hook a pipe up to it to give yourself some leverage. So PVC pipe will just break, so you need something steel like this or lead. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and hopefully I can get it off. So as you can see, I got my pipe on there, and with the leverage, it goes. Once you get it started, you can remove the pipe, and you should be able to do it by hand. What that's going to do for me, that's the self-destructing rod. Pull that all the way out, and that'll help remove the vacuum. The reason it doesn't look that bad is because I just replaced it probably 6 months ago, and it was pretty much gone when I did that. I also replaced both of the heating elements, but that brought it more life. It still works, but it doesn't work great, so I've decided it's time to go. So, all right, so I've already done that. Again, that now leaves, so air can go in there, just like if you're gonna chug a beer. If you plug a hole or knock a hole in the bottom, it will help it to drain. So now I still need to get a hose to connect to there since my other hose is still stuck to that other faucet. So I'm gonna get a hose out of my RV. All right, so I needed to connect the hose, which I got from my RV, which is what I should have done to begin with. I need to connect it to this thing here. It's not easy with the tray that's underneath it, so I just kind of used my wire clips or cable clips and cut the darn thing because I don't need it anymore. And that'll give me a little bit better clearance to hopefully hook this thing on here. So I'm going to hook that on, and then hopefully this will open, and I can start draining it. I got it connected and I opened the valve as much as it'll open. I don't think anything's flowing. I'm gonna straighten out the hose as best as I can. And if I still don't see water coming out, next step will be to remove each of the filaments, which will add more water coming out. So I'll do the top one first. Then once the water drains to that level, I'll do the bottom one. And then hopefully that's enough to get this thing out of here. Okay, so as you can see, I've straightened out the hose. I secured it with a brick so it doesn't recoil. It's going downhill from my garage. There's not really any uphill. I made sure there's no kinks. There's some minor ones here, but can't really do a lot about them. All right. And have it going all the way there, and there's still no water flow. So what does that mean? Well, it means I'm gonna have to start taking apart more. So I'm gonna take this off. I'll take the filament out, and hopefully that'll help it to flow. If it still doesn't flow, I'll take the bottom filament out, and hopefully we're good from there. All right, so to remove the filament, you take those two screws off, and you remove all this insulation that's around it and the little cap that protects all these cables. And then you unscrew these two screws, and that's where you have another issue. So you're gonna need a big ass socket and a wrench, or whatever the pole is called that moves that kind of socket, which I don't own. I'll have to get one from my father-in-law. I know he has one. So, bleeder project. I'll have to get that before I can continue. So, I'll be working that next. All right, so in order to pull this up, see it has those little tabs that prevent you from keeping it up. I'm gonna try to get underneath it, or I'm gonna bend those off with a pair of needle nose, and then it should be able to stay up, which will hopefully open up the pressure enough to allow the water to flow as well. So you can see I bent them up so that it would stand as best as I could and got it to stand up. Hopefully that's letting enough pressure, but let's go see if there's any water. I see no water flowing, so I still got too much of a vacuum apparently. This sucker does not want to let go. So I can probably cut these pipes. That should do it. That'll get the pressure going. If not, I'll have to wait till I can get the wrench to open up that. So I'm gonna cut these next. So I've decided whether or not I'm cutting this or this, but for now I'm gonna cut here and here to get me what I need to drain the darn thing. All right, so I got my PVC cutter. I'm just gonna do it right here for now. Do it on the other side as well. I'll probably end up cutting more. Go. So this thing is no longer hooked via any pipes to the house. It's just hooked with electrical at this point, which I can disconnect as well, since I've already turned off the breaker. So I'll do that next. So I basically remove that screw, remove that screw off of here, pull this thing out, and now I can just untwist these. There should be no live juice here, but just to be safe, I'm going to recap them. I'm going to keep them separate, just to be safe, and I'll cap them off. Again, I capped them off just to be safe. I don't want a chance that I turn that back on and the two things touch and we get fireworks. So I'm just going to tuck it out of the way for now. I'll probably keep it. I'll probably zip tie it to there or something just so that it's available if I ever need it. for another 220 outlet or something. It is officially disconnected at this point, not connected to the wall anywhere. So that pipe's cut there and there. This pipe's cut here. So this tank is now on its own, but it's still very, very full. So very, very heavy. So I do got to get its drain somehow. I was really hoping that the water would be flowing by now, but it is not. So I'm gonna have to get the wrench that I need to remove this filament in order to drain this stupid thing, which really sucks. I don't know why it doesn't want to drain. This is open, this is cut, this is cut. It's got airflow. This is open. The only thing I have, but the tank is very full, very heavy. So all I can do is try to take the filaments out to let it drain that way. And I don't have the wrench to do it, so I gotta get the wrench to do it. So, fun, later project. All right, so I've done everything I can outside of pulling these filaments out to try to get the water to flow. My only guess is that this has a bunch of sediment buildup inside of it that's preventing it. So what I'm gonna do before I drive to my father-in-law's house to get the wrench is I'm gonna take this hose off and I'm gonna try to shove something up in there. Probably the snake that I use to pull the wires because it's fairly thin and rigid, and see if I can clear the blockage and get the water flowing. Even if it leaks all over the floor, oh well. At this point, I just want it to drain. So we'll see what happens. So that didn't seem to work. So I'm gonna try to break the damn thing off. It looks like it's plastic. I'm just gonna get a pair of channel locks. I'm gonna break it off. If it doesn't flow then all I can do is what I said before, is take those out. So I'm gonna try to break it off. Okay, I didn't break it off. I unscrewed it off. It broke in the process, but it is now flowing into my garage, unfortunately. But not much I can do about it. Hopefully the water all flows out like it should outside. Not ideal, not the way I would have liked to do it. It's getting my tent wet over here. But it's draining. So there's that. Alright, I'll come back when this is done being drained. We'll get this thing out of here and I'll finish this job hopefully. So since it's disconnected, I went ahead and just spun it around so that the water's flowing in the right direction. I broke the tray again a little bit more so that it will flow. It's flowing the right way. And getting it outside. Again, not the ideal way to drain a hot water heater, but it was very much clogged. If you look through there, that's an open valve. And you can't see nothing. I see like a rock of some sort built in there. I tried clearing it with my snake, but it was to no avail. So I ended up just using my channel locks to unscrew the darn thing. And of course the plastic's brittle, so it broke as it went. But looks like the tank is empty. Yeah, nice and light now. I can roll it right out of here. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna roll it right out of here and be done with it. The water heater's gone. This tray actually has a second drain built into it. I can see the previous owner installed. So pretty easy. I'll just unscrew that. I already loosened it with my channel locks. Alright, pull that off. I'll just leave that drain there. I don't know that I ever need it, but in case I do, I got a drain that goes outside. So I assume it hooks to the same one that this hooks to inside the cinder block, but I'm not sure. But obviously it was set up so that it would never flood in here. The water would drain if the water heater failed into that or that, respectively. So, all right, I'm gonna get this tray out of here. I'm gonna clean this all up, and then I'll start working on my pipes up here. Okay, so after a closer look, it looks like these are just standard PEX pipes. I tried getting them off, but those brackets hold them on pretty good. I'm just gonna get my my PVC cutter and just cut them right there, and then I'll do the shark. So right to that. These are 3/4 instead of 1/2 inch though, So I have to return my shark bite 1/2 inch for 3/4 shark bites. So another run to Home Depot or Ace. Okay, so I got my PEX pipes coming out of the wall. I already cut the old pipes off. The brackets that were on here I cut off. Basically, I got 3/4 by 3/4 shark bite that I'm going to use to attach those. But before I do it, I want to clean these up a little bit. You can see there's like paint on there, stuff like that. So I'm going to clean those up. I'm going to start with a file or with a wire brush. And if that doesn't work, I have a file. It probably will work if I keep doing it forever. File's probably going to be quicker. And I'm doing that to ensure that it gets a good tight fit. Be careful not to file into the PEX pipe though, because I don't want to make it thinner than it's supposed to be. You could also use some steel wool. That would probably work well in this situation. I just don't have any. Kitchen scrubby, like a sponge, green sponge with a scrubby pad on the other side. Also would probably do the trick. But that seems to be doing the job. Same thing over here. And that's just because they painted it at some point. You want to make sure that paint doesn't cause leaks. And that's it. I'll get a paper towel and I'll wipe it all down, make sure it looks okay. I think it'll be all right. So I'm gonna go do that. Okay, so my pipes are all cleaned up. Looking much better than they were. Now I'm gonna take my shark bite connections. It's super simple. You just basically push it on. Now, if the pipe pushes, I'm gonna have to hold the pipe in order to push it on properly. This one I can probably push on because it doesn't move. No, of course it does. All right, I'm gonna stop the video so I can hold the pipe while I push. All right, I got them on there. So basically I just held it like that and then pushed the pipe on, kind of pulling this back as I went and pushing the actual pipe on. So they're on there, good. Now I basically just gotta put one there and one there. So I'm gonna undo these little false caps. I already got my Teflon tape on there, so I don't got to worry about that. Basically just going to line it up and twist it on. And then I'll get a pair of channel locks to tighten it on there a little better. For now, I'm just going to kind of piece them on. If you twist them like I did there, they don't stick out as much. See what I did there? So they're coming out and then they kind of circle back in and the pipe kind of pushes in as well. Just be careful not to bend them more than necessary. But that looks pretty good. So I'm just gonna tighten those up, and like I said, I'm gonna get a pair of channel locks or a wrench of some sort and tighten that better. But that's essentially all there is to that. So I'm going to do that now with the wrench. I'll be back in a minute. As you tighten these will start to twist. You need to be careful, and as that happens, just untwist it from here, because these can be turned. So then as you crank, this will start to crank again. You'll start to see these buckle, and you don't want that buckling. You don't want any kind of pinching. So you see I got some pinching going on there. So I need to twist that back. You see that? Right? And then as I tighten that more, this will start to buckle again, but that's okay. I'm just gonna keep fixing it down here as I tighten up here. Once these are fully tightened, I can leave these, I can twist this however I want to get them to be nice and straight without any buckles, okay? But the idea is you do not want any pinching there, okay? So I'm gonna finish tightening them. They're pretty tight now, but I'm gonna keep tightening them a little bit, and then I'm gonna work on this guy here. Those are all set. And you can twist them away or you can leave them out like that. I think they look good like that. I'm just gonna leave them just like that. And I kind of pushed the PEX pipe into the wall so they appear to just start there, which looks better. So last step for this, before I do the last bit of electrical in the electrical box, will be to extend this drain to here. So to do that, I'm gonna use a 3/4 coupling here, add some 3/4 CPVC, and then I have a CPVC tip to put onto that. So I'm gonna do that now. So first I'm gonna put my CPVC onto the coupler and put that on. Then I'm gonna measure from here to here to see how much pipe I'm gonna need. So from here to there, and then I'll finish it up. Got that fitting on, it's glued on. Now I'm just gonna use my measuring tape to determine the length of the pipe that I need to extend. So pretty much I'm gonna give myself just a little extra in case I have to cut. About 22, 23 inches, I would guess. It's going from there, I'll say 22, because I'm gonna go in there, but then I have a tip on the other end. So I'll do 22.5. So I'm just gonna cut myself that 22.5 piece. It's being difficult, so I'm gonna use 2 hands. So this is somewhat important. This, I need to screw on here before I start gluing stuff, because once it's glued, I won't be able to spin it any longer because this does not have a swivel top on it. So I'm gonna get that on there real good. All right, it's gonna get screwed on there. And then once it's on there, then I'll glue my extension pole to that and then the pole to the coupler. So I'm gonna tighten that up on there first, and I'll show you guys how it looks when it's done. Okay, so you can see I got it in there good. So I screwed it on first, then I glued. Now I'm going to slide it into the coupling with some glue on the coupling, and that'll be done. That is it for the plumbing. So this thing's at an angle, but it's just a drain pipe. It's just in case there's a pressure overload here. Okay, so I don't need to leave that on either. I can just pull that off. So basically, in case there's ever an overpressure in the hot water, it would come here, follow this, and out the drain out to the outside. So I'm not too worried about it. It didn't even have to be CPVC. I could have just used regular PVC because this isn't really going to be drinking water at this point. It's reject water, right? So this is drinking water as long as it's being used, but in the event of an overpressure, it's just dumping out to the outside. At that point, it's not drinking water, but I use CPVC just because that's what was coming out of the house. And if you don't use the same kind of pipe, then you need different glues on each side. It's just easier to use the same pipe. So this was CPVC, so I bought CPVC couplings and tips so that I could just use the same cement all the way down. All right, so this is it for the plumbing. The electrical on this side is all done. I took my old conduit for the old water heater. I capped them off, zip tied them up there. I don't need them, but I may at some point need that wire again. Maybe I'll want to install a outlet here for a car charger or God knows what, but it's there if I ever need it. So other than that, this is done. I got to go do the electrical box breakers and then I'm done. All right, so I'm back in my electric box. I have the 3 wires that I pulled through already. They're all set up there. They're ready to roll. I just got to unwrap them and then hook them to these 3 breakers and then push the breakers on. I feel comfortable doing that even with live power because I'm not really connected to, I can do it off over here. But my wife insists that I go turn off the house power to be safe. So I'm gonna go turn off the house power, then I'll come back in here and do this. So I'll show you when it's done. I got house power off just for safety. I'm gonna go ahead and undo these 3 things here. And then I will start connecting them up to the breakers, and then the breakers will go there. I'm gonna work on that, and then I'll come back and show you how it looks. All right, so I've disconnected the wires that were all taped up. I stripped off the tips. I twisted them real good tight with my needle nose. I have all 3 pairs ready to roll. So now I'll just loosen the screws on each of these, tighten each one up, then I'll put them on. See how it looks when they're all together. Okay, so I believe I'm done. Got all my wires wired. They come down. It's these 3 breakers in a row because I designed it that way. Moved everything else around to make everything fit. My box is pretty much full except for one opening right here. So next step, put the cover back on, then go turn the electric on, see if there's fireworks. If there's still no fireworks, then I'll turn the water on, then I'll turn these 3 breakers on for the new water heater. So I'll put the cover on now and then turn the electric on, and I'll come back to you. Okay, cover's back on. I just kind of taped back on the plug to plug that hole. I will have to relabel everything on the sides on this chart up here, which is gonna suck because everything's been moved, but that's okay. I'll do that tomorrow. Next step is to go turn the power on and see what we have. Okay, main electric is back on in the house. Still no fireworks. I have not turned on the 3 new breakers, but before I do that, I want to go turn the water on so that the water heater can get water. Okay, so Murphy's Law is in full effect. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. So I noticed earlier when I tried turning the water off on the house that no matter how much I spun, it didn't seem to really ever turn completely off. Well, now I have the opposite problem. I can spin this all day long and it is not turning on my water. I confirmed that the water works at my well over there. So if I go over there to my well, it turns on just fine at the well. So the well's not the problem. This stupid faucet is. So what do I gotta do? I'm gonna have to take this nut off, see if it's just a matter of it spinning on this axis, in which case I can use pliers to turn it. But I'll probably have to work replacing this mess tomorrow, which is just a lot of fun that I wasn't hoping to do, because I don't know if you can see it, but it's going to be a challenge. Oh, I got a chrysalis there. That's kind of cool. But it's going to be a challenge to take this off of these 2 pipes, between this pipe and that. So I'm not sure how I'll do that exactly without breaking this. So hopefully I can fix this nut, or this faucet, because that is my problem right now. It just spins and spins and spins. I cannot turn the house water back on. Whatever can go wrong, will go wrong, has gone wrong. So let me take this faucet off. All right, you probably heard my fountain over here struggling before because it had no water in it, and now it's filling, which means that the water is indeed flowing to the house. So off, on, much easier than a knob anyway. Something I actually intended to do, but I didn't want to do it after doing another job all day. But is what it is. All right, moment of truth for this guy here. Water is on. Electric is ready to be turned on. So I'm gonna turn all 3 breakers on. 1, 2, 3. Come back over. Okay. I saw the light was on for a minute there. Let's see what it says. It says off. I don't know what the 140. 140. I'm gonna leave it at 140 temporarily. I don't know if it's supposed to stay on that. I think it stays off until it turns on. So let me go turn some hot water on. Hot water is on. It says 140. So I can change that. I can try it at maybe 120. We'll see how hot it is. I'm thinking 140 is like scalding. Of course, by the time it reaches the other end of the house, maybe I'll need 140. Let's go see how hot it is. It's pretty damn hot. I don't know that I want it any hotter than that. I'll try it in the bathroom sink on the other end of the house. It's just as hot. Okay, let's test to see how long it takes to get over to this side of the house. And there it goes. It's getting warm and it's getting hot. Pretty hot. All right, I would say that's successful. I am going to turn it higher. Put it at 140 for now. I might turn it lower later, just because I do think it cools down getting throughout the house. But right by the laundry sink near the garage, it's fine. But when I get to the bedroom, it's hot. It's just not as hot. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it at 140 for now. If we find it too hot, I will lower it. So that is the end of this install. It has not been an easy one from a standpoint of all the other things that went wrong. Overall, the actual job isn't that bad, but inevitably, little side projects end up happening. In this case, I had problems with my wall spigot. Fell off the wall when I was trying to get the hose off to use it to drain my old tank. And then the main water wouldn't turn back on, the spigot broke. So 2 different spigot problems, unrelated to the job, but unfortunately made me take a lot longer to complete it. Overall though, I'd say it's gonna be well worth it. I got unlimited hot water. I've reclaimed all this space. I no longer have a big ugly tank here. So all in all, I'd say it's a win. Incidentally, I did purchase this set of hoses that I'm going to use for maintenance. So these hoses will go into a bucket that I will have a pump running to do vinegar through the system. It's supposed to be once a year. I might do it more often because I got kind of hard water at this house because it's well water. So I might do it a little more than once a year. I will do a video when I do it for the first time and we'll share it with you guys. All right, hope you enjoyed. I will leave comments on for a while so you can ask any questions. Eventually I'll probably turn them off because otherwise I get comments years later and I've moved on to other things. Okay guys, so if you did like the video, if you got something out of it, if this helped you in some way, please do like and subscribe to my channel. Also, it helps if you can leave some comments saying how you like the video and letting others know that it was a success for you. And I'd be happy to do other videos as other projects come up, and I will continue to share them with you folks. So again, like, subscribe, and comment. Thank you much. Until next project. Talk to you soon.